Hello, beautiful. Welcome to the She Sacral podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Christian. Let's go ahead and get started with today's episode. Hello, Sacral Beauty. Welcome to the She Sacral podcast, where we focus on burnout recovery through the power of sacred pleasure. We've been covering a lot during this series, so if this is your first time tuning in, be sure to check out all the other episodes related to the different sacral codes. So let's dive in and talk a little bit more about how your sacral energy affects how you bond, how you relate, and how you feel emotionally safe with others. So let's first talk about how your sacral energy is your bonding center. So your sacral energy governs your capacity to be able to connect emotionally and sensually. Have you ever tried to connect to someone and emotionally there's just no emotions, there's no feeling behind the connection? It's either very surface or it just feels like small talk all the time. I struggled with this for a little bit myself personally because there would be certain people that I would feel like, man, I've known them for a long time. They're good people. We get along well, but I don't feel any kind of deep connection to them. And when I think about it, it's because there wasn't a true emotional bond that was built, even though I'd known these people for years. And sometimes I think, especially now, even after the pandemic and even beforehand, I feel like there's just been a little bit of this wounding when it comes to distance in connections, where there's just this deep unconscious fear or belief of, I can't get too close. Closeness is dangerous, And so when I think about the emotional bonds that I've built with people, it is through those vulnerable moments, not through trauma bonding, not through connecting through all the traumas that you've been through, but rather it's a positive emotion where you both see something and you just laugh so hard. Or maybe you feel safe enough to cry in front of this person. Or maybe you just talk about your day and then you just can relate to them on that certain level. And it creates that emotional bond. And the more emotions that you express in the presence of that person, the deeper that bond becomes. Sensually, that connection is also really important because that creates the stronger bonds in the brain. I feel that the emotional bonds connect the heart, but the sensual bonds connect the memories of the brain. You can still smell their perfume, or you can smell their cologne, or you remember the scent of their home or the smell of their foods that they would eat. You remember the way that they touched you. Rather, it was through an act of love or an act of fear or negativity or harm. You remember what they look like. The things that you would see together. Remember that time that we went to that park and we saw that guy just trip over that tree stump? You saw something together, or you heard something together. You remember the sound of their voice, and it becomes just this full immersive experience to where we now can say we have a bond with that person. So it's really helpful for me to even process as I'm saying this to you, because I would always struggle with that. Like, what is it? Why don't I feel a bond with this person? And you can even have bonds through negativity. Even though you don't like the person rubs you the wrong way. Emotionally, if there's just this consistent pattern of negativity with that person, you still have a bond with that person. So when we connect emotionally and sensually in a positive space, this is where we form a sense of resonance, where we have a felt sense of alignment with others. So I want to do a little exercise with you, and I want you to think of a relationship that you have with someone, whoever comes to mind. This is a natural flow, a natural process, and you can apply this to many other relationships. You can replay this episode later and do this activity again. But I want you to just think of a person that you have a bond with, that you've known for a long time, or maybe you just recently met, doesn't really matter. But I want to ask you first, do you truly feel seen? Do you feel that they can see your intentions? They see your heart. They see who you really are, no matter what mask you wear no matter what lies you tell, no matter what defenses you put up, they still see you underneath everything. They see you so clearly that they see the good and they can see the bad. Everything that you try to hide, they can still see. Do you feel that in your relationship or your bond? Or do you feel like they just see you through whatever filter they have on life, through whatever perceptions or bias that they have created about you based on your interactions? There's a lot of people like that. Or something that's really common, especially in family members, they still see you as a child, or they still see you from the last time they spent the most time with you. They don't actually see you as you are right now in this moment. Maybe you have changed your life. You have transformed radically. You have pulled away from the old habits. You don't do the things you used to do anymore. You have rebirthed yourself. But all that they can see is that old version of you. No matter how much you've changed, that's all that they see. In that instance, they still don't see you. Okay, so now that we broke that down, let's focus on feeling safe. Do you feel safe in this bond or this relationship emotionally, physically, spiritually? If you were to put your life in their hands, would you still be okay? Do you feel safe to be vulnerable? Do you feel safe to express yourself? Do you feel safe to trust them? Do you feel like if you can tell them anything that it is protected? Do you feel that they try to compete with you? Do you feel that they try to dismiss you? Do you feel that they try to diminish you? Do you feel that they envy you? Do they belittle you? Do they insult you? Do they attack you? And obviously, if they physically harm you, if they do anything that is of negative energy towards you, this would be a space of not feeling safe. And sometimes safety can be subjective. What could be familiar can be confused with safety. But if you were to remove that familiar feeling, that repeated pattern, what you're used to experiencing with this particular person or with other people that have that same type of energy, if this was a new experience, would you feel safe? Probably not. But sometimes we say, well, that's just how they are, or I'm used to it. That doesn't make it safe. Next up, do you feel desired in this bond? And that's something that you have to ask yourself. Do they truly desire to be close to you, to be connected to you, to love you, to know you, to want you, to want to be with you, to want to be around you? Or do they desire the things that you have? Do they desire to copy you? Do they desire to want to be you? Do they desire to want to be close to you, to know your next move so that they can sabotage you? See, this is a space where we have to have a lot of discernment. Because people can mask, they can disguise. Hey, let's hang out, right? Let's go do this, let's go do that. Sometimes people can literally desire to have you around simply for an aesthetic because they're getting something out of you being around, but the desire is not actually for you. If you strip everything away from yourself, the material things, the money, the status, all of that, if you strip all of that away, do they still desire to be with you or be around you or be connected to you? And on the flip side, do you desire to be with that person? Do you desire to be connected to that person? And sometimes we are connected through obligation. We are connected because of family. We are connected because we feel like we have to. That's not desire. That's bondage. Last but not least, let's go over feeling understood. Do you feel like you have to explain yourself all of the time? Do you feel like when you just express yourself or you're sharing something, that it's just understood, that they get it. Do you understand them? Or is it like, I don't get you. I don't understand you. Like, I'm so confused about how you operate. Do you feel like that? Or do you feel like, I really understand them? Maybe I don't agree with everything, but I understand them. Or they really understand what I'm saying and I don't feel like I'm speaking another language. So those 4 key areas are going to let you know the type of bond that you really have. And it can explain to you why you may feel disconnected from that person or why it doesn't feel like a really close bond. And when these 4 things are not in the positive sense, it will absolutely affect the way that you give and you receive in those relationships. And so your sacral energy doesn't just attract intimacy, it responds to it. It says yes when it feels safe, when it feels seen, desired, and understood, and no when it senses a dissonance or a contradiction in any of those 4 areas. So that should let you know something. If you're like, oh, I have a hesitance, I don't want to feel close to this person. One of these 4 things has been negative or been broken or is not aligned. All right, so let's dive in and talk about what disrupts connection. What creates this disconnection in these relationships? Some of the things that can disrupt connection are going to be overgiving from a space of unworthiness. You feel like you just have to keep overgiving in the relationship and to do more to keep them. People pleasing and emotional self-abandonment. When you feel that you need to go out of your way to make the other person feel so comfortable, but in the long run, you're negating, you're diminishing your own feelings in that process. You are putting them above you in that moment, not consciously, but it's just a way that you are interacting in this connection that is going to disrupt things. If you feel that you're performing your femininity instead of embodying it. When you perform femininity, you're putting on the heels or you're wearing the shoes or you're wearing the dresses or you're doing your hair a certain way or you're putting on the makeup or you're doing whatever you think in your mind represents feminine nature, but you're not embodying feminine nature. There's no softness, there's no receptivity, there's no sensuality, there's no emotional connection, there's no fluidity, there's no flow. Everything is in the space of control, force, resistance, blocking, aggression. Those are not going to be aligned with embodying the feminine nature. Even if you're trying to portray as though you are, it's really like cosplay, right? And this is not coming from a judgy space because I know the energy that creates that force, that protection, the blocking, the aggression, all of that is coming from a very unresolved emotional state that creates that hardening effect that you can have. So it's just to alert you that there could be something that's unprocessed when we can't get ourselves in a space to soften. When we have unprocessed betrayal, rejection, or emotional neglect, that is also going to disrupt connection. When someone lies to you, when someone cheats on you, when someone betrays you, when someone says, no, I reject you, when they just abandon you emotionally, even though they're there physically, that's going to break that bond. When we've adopted hyper independence from sacral wounding, meaning someone has taken advantage of you, someone has given you things and then stripped them away, someone has manipulated you into feeling guilty for giving or receiving, it can make you feel like, I don't need anybody, don't help me, I don't want to receive anything from you, I'm good on my own. And I don't blame you if you feel this way, because sometimes when you go through things with people and you put your sense of dependence or safety into another person's hands, and if they have that upper hand or dominance or control to rip that away from you and then you're left with nothing, that will absolutely activate that because that becomes your form of survival. And so sometimes there's this conflict or this dissonance when you hear someone saying, just receive, just be open to receiving. It just kind of falls on deaf ears when you've gone through something like this. And it's really hard to get out of it because you don't know who you can trust, because that wound, it feels so damaging. It threatens your existence. So that is just a form of survival. But it is a double-edged sword because it will create a disconnection because there has to be give and receive in relationships. And we'll talk more about the art of receiving in another series down the road. I'm excited to talk about that with you because I think it's a really important topic that we'll need to learn to work through if we're in this space. Some emotional symptoms that can come up when your connections have been disrupted is feeling unseen, feeling lonely, feeling like you're invisible even when you're surrounded by people. If you're craving that closeness, but you're fearing vulnerability, when you start repeating patterns of over caretaking, constantly taking care of someone, even though they're completely able, doing so much for them, or when you silence yourself. Confusing connection with control. There's a lot of connections where you have someone that's just trying to control you. They become the puppet master and you become the puppet. That is not connection. That is bondage. That is control. That is manipulation. That is, to me, evil. Or chemistry with chaos, right? When you think that there's chemistry, but truly there's just a lot of chaos. There's a lot of energy that's there, but it's very chaotic, very negative. It's very disruptive. It's very explosive. But sometimes we can confuse that with chemistry. It's chemistry, all right. Everything's blowing up. That's not the kind of chemistry we want. We want chemistry that works together so well that it creates something beautiful. That the elements work together. They don't combust or explode. And so a real connection does not cost you yourself. It allows for you to include yourself. If you notice that the other person just dominates the entire relationship, everything is about them, everything is about what they want to do, everything is about their preference, and you don't even have the space or energy or safety to be able to be you in the relationship. You become this avatar in their life to appease them. That's not connection. So let's talk a little bit about emotional resonance versus emotional performance. And of course, I like to break down the origin of words, the etymology of words. And the word performance comes from the combination of Latin and Old French roots. And so the Old French term is parformer, P-A-R, former, which means to carry out, to finish, to accomplish. And this came from the Latin root word performare. Per means through or completely, and formare means to form, to shape. And so performance originally meant to bring into complete shape or expression. So it doesn't mean to just act or present, but it means to fully bring something into form. And so it's really more about embodiment and completion. So that means that you are completely shaping yourself into what is being asked of you. Rather, we're shape-shifting to get approval, or we pretend to be soft when we're hurting, or to have this scripted sense of care when we feel empty. Do you ever have your go-to words where it's like, oh no, I'm so sorry. I hope you feel better, but you don't actually feel that. That's performing. When you contort yourself into different versions that you think will get you love or to feel chosen or to feel kept, it's a way that you are actually protecting yourself. And the act of protection can actually become very exhausting. The next thing to know about emotional resonance versus emotional performance is that your body knows the difference. Even when your mind isn't sure, your body is really smart with feeling and detecting the emotions. The body doesn't lie, but your mind can try to override things. Resonance honors authenticity, and performance chases approval. So I want you to take notice today, whether you're having a conversation with someone or you just think back on a past experience, who makes you feel like you have to explain yourself? And who makes you feel like you could just be? You could just talk to them forever and not feel exhausted. All right, so now let's talk about restoring emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy starts with internal intimacy. So intimacy is not just physical closeness, but it's a sacred unveiling. It's saying, here I am. This is who I am. I trust you with the softest parts of me. It's not always comfortable because it means that you're revealing the unpolished, the tender, the true, right? It's not performance, it's presence. And in relationships, real intimacy is not just about being seen or being looked at, but it's about being known and being felt, even when that knowing feels scary, even when it disrupts the performance. And so when we think about that, do you feel like you need to harden yourself more because the deepest parts of yourself don't feel accepted? And so if you feel like you can't remove that hard shell in your relationships, that's a sign that we don't really have an intimate connection. So some practices that you could do is to place your hand on your womb and your heart, and you can ask yourself, what part of me needs to be heard right now, or seen right now, or felt right now? And another way that you can tap into this deep, intimate portion of yourself is to write out or journal, where do I shrink in my connections and why do I do this? Sensual connection without pressure, making eye contact, hand holding, having emotional presence. And I think sometimes a lot of women may struggle with this in relationships. Sometimes men too, right? You can go both ways. But for the most part, a lot of women can feel that pressure to perform when it comes to sexuality instead of building that sensual connection. Those are the ways that we form those stronger bonds. And the more that that sensual connection is there, the safer we feel. When we feel that those softer, more intimate, sacred parts of ourselves are safe and protected, and there's no pressure. When you can have honest connections that start with, this is how I feel in this moment. In some relationships, you can't have those types of honest conversations. As soon as you try to express how you feel, you're shut down. There's deflection, there's projection, there's rejection, there's action. It's just not good. There's no connection, right? So with that being said, I want to remind you that you do not have to force connection. When your sacral energy is open and balanced, that real intimacy finds you. Not because of who you pretend to be, but because of who you allow yourself to be in those spaces. All right, well, that concludes today's episode. Of course, we do a deep dive in our private community after the show. If you want to talk more about that, you absolutely can. Just click the link down below where you'll also get access to 30 days of pleasure rituals. Up next, we're going to dive in and talk about the pleasure code and how joy and sensuality will nourish your emotional body and bring you back to flow. Thank yourself so much for showing up today, and thank you for tuning in to the She Sacral podcast.